Okay, I'm showing us as about 2 minutes after 12. Um, Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Kaifas. I'm with the Neighborhood Services Office. We're here today to talk about the Grand Canal Connection Project, and we have with us Chase Wallman. Chase is a planner in our transportation department, and he will be our presenter today. For some reason, we aren't able to see Chase and the title slides and the slides. So he will have to be faceless today. But over to you, Chase. Oh, before we get started, if you would hold your questions till the end, and we'll have an opportunity then for a question and answer. You can type them in the chat, or if you want, I'll unmute you and you can ask yourself. Okay. Chase, I think we're ready to start.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Laura. Are you hearing me okay?
We are.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining this afternoon on your lunch break. As Laura said, my name is Chase Wallman. I'm a senior transportation planner with the City of Tempe, and we will be giving an update on our Grand Canal Connection project. And this is really to reintroduce the project because we last brought the project in 2018. Since then, it's kind of grown in scale and scope. So this presentation today is really to reintroduce the project and start to get some feedback on some conceptual alternatives that we've developed so far so that we can inform our 15% final design, level design for our next public meeting. So this is a very preliminary look at this project, but to reintroduce everyone to this project, we first brought these Grand Canal projects to the public in 2018, and that was when it was then called the Grand Canal Phase 1 and Phase 2 projects. Grand Canal Phase 1 was this project over here near Priest Drive and 56th Street, and that project was to formalize a direct connection from Tempe's Grand Canal to Phoenix's Grand Canalscape. Unfortunately, we had to change the alignment similar to our north-south project. This project, to make this direct connection, would require us crossing the Union Pacific Railroad. And unfortunately, the requirements necessary to formalize this connection was too cost prohibitive for this project to absorb to formalize this direct connection. It involves some higher upfront capital costs for the safety improvements, but more importantly, there was a required annual maintenance fee in perpetuity that this project's budget just couldn't absorb. So with that, we changed what was originally our Grand Canal Phase 1 project to instead extend the project west of its current terminus on the west side here of the Grand Development and continue it west and then up 56th Street to connect to existing bike lanes along 56th Street and Washington Street. We then had our Grand Canal Phase 2 project, which we brought to the public in 2018. That Grand Canal Phase 2 project was a MAG Design Assistance grant funded project, and that was to develop the preliminary design concepts and develop a design assistance report so that we can understand the costs and get preliminary feedback on making the connection between the Rio Salado North Bank path and the Grand Canal path. So with that Phase 2 project, we brought to the public a few different alternatives. One which included Priest Drive alternative, which you can see here on the map was included with this project. We also looked at a grade separated crossing over the 202. Another alternative was using Center Parkway. And then finally on the east end of the project, we had a Lakeview Drive alternative that would use Lakeview Drive to connect Rio Salado North Bank path to the existing east end of Tempe's Grand Canal. Ultimately, those two alternatives, the Priest Drive alternative and the Lakeview Drive alternative, were moved forward as the preferred alternatives from that public feedback in 2018. So we incorporated that into this project. And then finally, the fourth part of this Grand Canal Connection project is the proposed connection between the Crosscut Canal over here on the east side of the project, directly connecting to our existing Crosscut Canal path entrance over to an existing pedestrian signal that's part of the light rail that connects users over on the east side of Tempe Grand Canal. So this project brings together some preliminary phases that we've already undertook, and it also incorporates this new transportation master plan identified projects to connect Crosscut Canal with Grand Canal. So these are the 4 areas of this Grand Canal connection project that you'll see in red here. So I'm going to go through each one of these 4 and just show you these preliminary design concepts. This first video on the right is going to take you from the area of Tempe Center for the Arts and our Elmore pedestrian bridge, and it'll take you along the existing Rio Salado North Bank path towards Priest Drive. What we're proposing here is to use the east sidewalk. We're going to improve the east sidewalk and replace to make a 10-foot wide concrete path that could be used for multimodal travel on the east side. In addition, we'll be looking at upgrading all of the ramps so that they're ADA compliant. And then this will continue from the Rio Salado North Bank path along the east side of Priest Drive. You'll have this 10-foot pathway to connect to the Grand Development's entrance, which connects directly to the Grand Canal, as well as the existing bike lanes along Washington Street and Priest Drive. And this will show up here in red. So this will be proposing to relocate a barrier that exists today along Priest Drive and narrow some of the travel lanes, but keeping the same number of travel lanes along Priest Drive. So ultimately, creating a 10-foot wide side path from the Rio Salado North Bank path to the Grand Development entrance and then to Washington Street. This is a plan view and cross section of the existing conditions, what it looks like today. And this is the proposed improvement. So again, widening that east side sidewalk to make 10 feet and then narrowing some of the existing travel lanes. And then also calling out high visibility crosswalks and new directional ramps. This is an existing condition photo. This is a rendering of what that would look like. Again, this is the area of the ramp from 202. So this is the existing crossing and our proposed new ramp and high visibility crosswalks. This next section of the project is that 56th Street connection, what was formerly Grand Canal Phase 1. We will be beginning in the existing Grand Canal section in Tempe. This is in the area of the Grand Development. So this is the small portion that's already improved within the city of Tempe, and we're making our way west. Ahead, you can see the Priest Drive Bridge overhead. So this Grand Canal path, the existing one, is underneath that, so we will remain at that same grade. And right now we are getting towards the end of the existing Grand Canal path towards this 3rd bridge. So what we'll be proposing here is to continue that path right here underneath the Priest Drive Bridge until we get to this 56th Street alignment. This is the existing condition that will remain today, which is this asphalt maintenance road separating the Phoenix Grand Canal with Tempe's Grand Canal. We'll then continue our off-street pathway north along this 56th Street alignment until we get to this area here along 56th Street, this cul-de-sac area, where the improvements will be from off-street pathway onto on-street improvements. So what we're proposing here is to have a pavement rehabilitation project and new striping to accommodate buffered bike lanes along 56th Street. And these will connect to these bike lanes that you see here along 56th Street, as well as along Washington Street. So sorry, hopefully I'm not making people too dizzy here. It was a little hard to drive on Google Earth, but you'll see this alignment again show up in red. This is a conceptual illustration of what I was just walking through. So on the east end, you have the existing Grand Canal path we would connect over here. This in gray is our proposed alignment. This was what we designed back in 2018 for the Grand Canal Phase 1 project. So we would continue that project along west side of this future proposed roadway that would be built by the nearby development. So what we would propose here is this off-street pathway with lighting and landscaping. That's not shown in this conceptual illustration right now, but something that we'll bring back in our next public meeting once we're further along in the design. And then we'll transition from that off-street pathway over to our on-street location, where we're proposing buffered bike lanes the rest of the way to connect to the existing bike lanes at 56th Street and Washington Street. This is the proposed cross section of that on-street section. So what we're proposing here is 6.5-foot bike lanes and a 2-foot buffer separating the bike lane from the vehicular lanes. Next will be this crosscut canal to the Grand Canal segment. So this is a very small but important connection and gap that we have in our system. We're going to be zooming in on the east end of Tempe's Grand Canal at the existing pedestrian signal near the light rail. So this is our proposed connection, and this is the connection to Tempe's Grand Canal. Proposing to go through this existing signal and then in between the First Solar parking garage and the SRP crosscut facility, where we then meet up with Mill Avenue, where we will be proposing a new pedestrian signal at Mill Avenue to directly connect users over here on this side that I'm kind of flying over here, which is the existing crosscut canal section. So what we're proposing here is a 10-foot wide off-street pathway with lighting and landscaping, and then that new pedestrian signal that I talked about. And now I'll connect to the existing pedestrian signal at Washington Street near the light rail station. These are some existing condition photos as well as another conceptual illustration. Again, these alignments might change. We're very preliminary and we're still talking to the adjacent property owners about what requirements are needed to make this connection. So what you see here is really a conceptual illustration, but you'll see the proposed lighting. The landscaping is not shown in here, but the gray is representing the 10-foot off-street pathway. And then on the east end, you see the potential proposed signal at Mill Avenue and crosswalk. On the top left, that's the existing pedestrian signal near the light rail, the Center Parkway station. Then in the middle portion, this is the existing condition in between the First Solar parking garage, and to the north, you have the SRP crosscut facility. So this is the potential alignment of that pathway. And then this final photo on the right, this is the potential landing area where the east end of this connection would take place and the proposed pedestrian signal. And then finally, we have our Lakeview Drive improvements. So this is a mixture of off-street pathway as well as on-street improvements. So Lakeview Drive is this horseshoe shape that currently has bike lanes on it that connects on the west side to Washington Street and on the east side to Curry Road. So what we're proposing with this project is to introduce a buffer space in between the bike lanes and the vehicular lanes along the entirety of Lakeview Drive. Where feasible. On the west, that is that entrance again to the Tempe Grand Canal and that pedestrian signal that exists today for the light rail that I talked about. And then over here, this is something that came up with our public outreach in 2019 or 2018, talking about the lack of accessible route connections over from the Mill Avenue sidewalk down to the Tempe Town Lake area. So as part of this project, we will also be introducing, completing the gap in accessibility, providing an ADA accessible route from the existing Mill Avenue sidewalks near Marquette Theater down to the north side of Tempe Town Lake, this Rio Salado North Bank area. So all these areas in red are the proposed improvements. That horseshoe shape again are the on-street improvements where we'll be proposing a new high visibility crosswalk and directional ramps and buffered bike lanes. And then this is a segment of missing sidewalk currently that we're proposing to complete. This will take you over to a new accessible route that would make its way down to the Town Lake Rio North Bank area. And then we will keep the existing staircase that is there today as another secondary connection. These are some plan views showing the existing condition and then the potential proposed buffer bike lanes and the accessible route. And then you can see that existing staircase that will remain today. Here is a rendering of that same area. And we have another rendering here. This is as we're making our way north along Lakeview Drive. And so those are our 4 segments. So going into next steps, we went to get initial feedback from our Transportation Commission. We have this meeting obviously right now, and then we have another evening meeting today that will show the same materials that I showed here. Once we get all that feedback, we'll develop our 15% level designs. Those are the designs that we'll take back in the spring for another round of public meetings to get public feedback. But ultimately, we're proposing to finish up the final plan specification estimates. So again, the project ready to bid for construction in later part of 2023. And with that schedule, we would anticipate construction starting in the summer of 2024. And so with that, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time in your lunch hour to review the Grand Canal Connection project. We'll have all of these materials and additional materials available on the website at tempe.gov/Grand Canal. That way you'll be able to zoom into these designs a little bit closer. And through that webpage and also on tempe.gov/forum, we'll have the survey available so that we could get your recorded feedback. And yeah, with that, I'll turn it over to Laura to open up our Q&A session.
Thanks, Chase. We do have an initial comment. The comment says the serpentine ramp needs to start from the mill side to be easier for ADA access.
That's a great comment. Okay, I'll get that noted on there.
Okay, and I'll send you a copy of the chat. We have another, this one's a question. Can you clarify the information about the railroad? Will there be access to the Phoenix Grand Canal path?
Yeah, so that access will remain as it is today. And so the existing condition right now is that it is a maintenance road. So basically an asphalt road that connects to Phoenix's Grand Canalscape and will connect to our south end of our project, but we're not able to make any improvements to that. It'll have to remain as it is today, which is basically an asphalt road between the 2 pathways.
Anyone else have a question, or anyone else want to go ahead and unmute themselves? Feel free. We have another question. What is the crossing on Mill?
Maybe I'll go back to that one. Hopefully we can see it better. So this proposed crossing is basically at the entrance of where Crosscut, I know it's a little cut off here. It's at the entrance of where Crosscut Canal path entrance is. So there's a nearby driveway just to the south. And then just to the east, just off this image, there is the entrance to the Crosscut Canal path. So what we're proposing is to make the most direct connection possible to the existing Crosscut Canal path entrance. Again, we're really preliminary, so we still need to talk to the adjacent property owners. So this alignment might change, but this is our preliminary proposal for where that connection would be made. So it'll be a new pedestrian signal.
Okay, I think that clarifies. There was the question about a signal.
Yeah, so on the west end, there's the existing, this image right here is the existing pedestrian signal for the light rail station. So we're proposing to use that on the west side, and then on the east side, we would be proposing a new pedestrian signal at Mill Avenue.
Great. Hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Anyone want to unmute or type it in the chat? Okay, and we hope everyone will take a moment to fill out a quick survey that we have online. It's at tempe.gov/forum, and you'll just look for the link to this survey, the Grand Canal Connection Survey. It's a short survey. It's mostly open-ended, So you can just kind of give us your feedback on all the segments. And that will be open through November 7th. It's a short meeting, no questions, nothing further to add.
It'll be the same show at 5:30.
Yes, and we will be live and in person as well. So that will be a hybrid meeting. Okay, well, that pretty much concludes what we have. We'll stay on for a few minutes in case someone thinks of something, but that ends our formal presentation, and thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you all.